Okay. Today we are talking about the very common question, why do I feel so guilty when I'm trying to set boundaries with my mom? Or maybe why do I still feel guilty when I'm trying to set boundaries with my mom? It's a really, really common question we see and hear a lot. We are licensed marriage and family therapists. This channel is created to address and discuss questions like that. We chose this question first, actually, because we thought it was going to be a really straightforward answer. I'm like, oh, okay, we're just getting into this type of conversation and having it be on a more accessible platform. And we'll just go straight for, well, why do I feel guilty? And as we've been talking through it, this is, who knows what number take this is, because we keep circling around the fact that it is actually really complicated and nuanced, even though in some ways it's sort of very simple. There's just so much underneath it. So yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I just want to kind of acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge that it's the weight of it,
Yeah, and I think as therapists or as people in general, it's like set boundaries. Boundaries are great. Everyone needs boundaries. But the truth of the matter is when you set boundaries, there's a response. And sometimes that's like really tricky and feels scary and overwhelming for lots of different reasons. So we're going to talk about the lots of different reasons because it's not just one thing, but hopefully get something out of it to understand like what's going on when you're setting boundaries and maybe what some things you can shift and think about in those moments. Because it's not easy. It's not as easy as just set a boundary.
It's really not. And I feel like the difficulty even talking about it really highlights that. And I feel like there's a number of kind of like concepts or experiences that we're going to bring up in this conversation that we'll explore further in future, whatever these are, episodes. Just because although there's a lot to cover, like we really want this to be contained and straightforward as much as possible, even with these really complicated topics. So when we talk about the concept of guilt, very simply, guilt arising when we try to advocate for ourselves or set boundaries for ourselves, the thought that I have is like, what role is that guilt playing? Like it's there for a reason. Normally that guilt is there for a reason. Where is it coming from? What is it telling you? And oftentimes when you really, especially when it's specifically in that dynamic with your mom, although it can show up in all of your relationships, it shows up when we experience, like we have the repeated experience in childhood of trying to set boundaries or try to share our feelings. And over and over and over, there's some kind of, or even prioritizing ourselves, right? Like there's some kind of negative response to that. And that could be all kinds of things. That can be emotional volatility. It can be unpredictability. It could be withdrawal. Mom disappears. Yeah. But yeah, that's just like foundationally is like, oh, I try to set a boundary and then some scary thing happens to us. And what we learn from that is, oh, in order to avoid that bad thing, whatever it is, we need to not set boundaries. We need to not advocate for ourselves. That's like a really common adaptive response to that kind of like unpredictable environment.
Yeah, I mean, kids are just trying to learn how to get their needs met. And so if you learn that if you speak up or you ask for what you need, or you say you don't want to do something, or you don't like the food, or you don't want to, whatever, you just have a want or a need or a preference or an opinion. And if the response to that is emotional detachment or volatility, like you said, then the kid learns like, well, that didn't work out for me, so don't do that anymore. Kids are super adaptive and smart. So the question that we're posing back is, what does the guilt tell you? And what is the guilt protecting you from? What have you learned along the way that your internal system is saying, don't set a boundary? Like, what are you thinking? That's crazy talk. Don't do that because this bad thing's going to happen. So what was that for you? What is that guilt protecting you from?
Yeah, and I think this is a topic we will definitely address more directly in another conversation because it is such a deep component of this. But children, we are pre-wired to trust our primary attachment figures, right? We pre-wired to trust our parents, and so when there is that type of response, when we're trying to advocate for ourselves, when we're little, we assume we did something wrong. We're going to turn on ourselves before we're going to question our attachment figures. That's like a biological attachment response. And again, there's like a lot of nuance to that I think is interesting to explore. But just like on its face, again, connecting it to the guilt, if the assumption is, oh, I said I don't like pizza and my mom served me pizza and now she's, in the back room refusing to come out, the lesson that's learned in that is like, oh, I was rude, I was being selfish, I did something wrong. And then there comes the guilt. right? And so those over time, the repeated pattern, again, something that's important to remember is this, it's all about the patterns. It's not a one-off thing, but if the repeated pattern is every time I say something, my mom has this big negative response, I'm going to start to link that feeling of guilt along with the act of setting a boundary, right? So like
Yeah.
when I set a boundary, I'm being selfish, I'm being disrespectful, I'm being unkind. And that carries into adulthood in this like really
Yeah.
visceral way. So now I say, I don't want to go to the movies with my mom this weekend, but if I tell her that, there's going to be some kind of reaction. And I feel I'm still carrying the weight of that responsibility for that reaction, right? Like I'm being rude, I'm being disrespectful, I'm being unkind, I'm being selfish, right?
Yeah. And I found that folks, through therapy or support or friends or whatever, it's like their adult brain knows, like, it's okay for me to not want to go to the movies. And they might even say, I don't want to go to the movies. Whether you set the boundary or not, sometimes it's like that internal response of like, what's wrong with me? I can't even say no when I want to say no. Why can't I set this boundary? Or you set the boundary, you're like, what was I thinking? This is terrible. Now I'm in trouble, or it feels that way. And so your adult brain might know it to be true. It's fine to not want to go to the movies. But internally, that internal swirl is really hard and can be, minutes, hours, days of like feeling really dysregulated, uncomfortable,
Yeah.
anxious, shut down, all of those things.
And I feel like an added layer to that too is it is often in these in unhealthy adult daughter mother relationships, it's reinforced, right? So like it often that behavior usually carries into adulthood. So when I say hey, I'm exhausted, I just don't have time to go to the movies this weekend, the reaction continues to happen and continues to reinforce the messaging. It's not like, oh, now we're adults and everything's different. And suddenly my mom is, oh, thanks for letting me know. I hope you can, get a lot of rest for yourself. That would be great. To be clear, like that would be amazing. And if that happens, like, heck yes, that's wonderful. But oftentimes in these sort of like antagonistic relational patterns or what we call like the emotionally immature relational patterns, it usually carries on into adulthood. And so you're kind of like, you know, pulled into, I think of it like it's like a rip current, you know what I mean? Like you're like really clear on what your boundary is, and then you try to do the thing with your mom, and then the manipulation happens, or the defensiveness happens, or the shame happens, or the criticism happens, or the victim mentality happens, or whatever the thing is that happens, and suddenly your reality starts to get twisted and distorted, and you're like, wait a second, maybe I can do it. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe I'm not tired. Maybe I don't need rest, or I haven't seen her a lot. I do owe her that, you know what I mean? You just get like turned
Or it's not
around.
worth it. It's not
Or
worth it to
or
feel
it's not
this
worth
way.
it.
So I'm just
Yeah.
going to go to the movies because this is too much pain or trouble
Yes.
or angst, like I'll just go to the movies. It's fine.
I love that you said that, because that is such like a common, yeah, it'll be easier to just do, I can handle it. And that's a big one, right? Like I can handle it, right? And just because you can handle it doesn't mean you should have to handle it. But yeah, so again, a lot of themes we're going to be talking about in future conversations. There's plenty to explore, just in terms of like that dynamic growing up, the theme of responsibility, this idea of like what the process is like of actually trying to set boundaries, all of that. There's just a lot to discuss. But just on its face, that idea, why do I feel guilty? Why do I feel so guilty when I try to set a boundary with my mom? Oftentimes, there is this link to this pattern of this whatever, and there's an opportunity when you think about that, there's a real opportunity for self-reflection in terms of, well, what would happen? Because it's different for everyone, right? Like what would happen when I was younger? What was the message that was sent to me when I tried to set a boundary? So, yeah.
Yeah. Just the 2 points I would make is be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
People say it so easily. Just set the boundary. Just say no. No is a complete sentence. These are the things I hear. And I just want to validate, like, be kind to yourself. This takes time and it takes making these connections to understand. And a lot of your own coping and regulation there is really important. And a reminder that boundaries are not mean. Boundaries are a love letter, right? Boundaries are, here's how to love me. This is what I need. These are my preferences. Boundaries are not shutting down or withdrawing or a punishment, right? So when you're doing this, you're trying to show self-love and love to the other. This is how we can have a healthier relationship. And if you're getting a negative reaction from that, that's information for you. So
Yeah.
just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. Their reaction is not information about your boundary. Their reaction is information about their ability to tolerate your boundary. But I love what you said. Yeah, be kind, because it's an easy concept to understand conceptually. It is very, very different when you're actually doing the thing. Anyway, this was fun, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work through other questions. We hope to see you
Yeah.
all again.
Take care.